Many of us are familiar with this badge. We've seen it on a car that looks like this. Yes, this is the Volkswagen Polo. It's a great hatchback. It drives really well, feels very solid, German engineering and all of that. But honestly, I think that the one over there is a lot more tempting. Well, just one glance and you can easily tell that this is a racier version of the Polo. I mean, look at it. It's got all its racing bits in place. The wide body sports kit, the big fat tires, a nice bright paint job, and of course, every boy racer's dream, a big fat spoiler sticking out the back of the roof. But actually, there's a lot more going on here that meets the eye. This car comes with a racing suspension with adjustable anti-roll bars. And of course, this particular car has a bigger and a much more powerful engine. You see, this one has a 1.4 TSI engine as compared to the 1.2 TSI that is found on the normal Polo GT over here. Needless to say, it produces a lot more horsepower. This particular 1.4 TSI unit produces about 180 brake horsepower and about 250 Newton meters of torque. Accompanying this particular engine is a 6-speed DSG as opposed to the 7-speed DSG that you get on the Polo over here. They say it's quicker, they say it's faster, much more responsive, but we'll only get to know that once we head it out on the track. Now once you're on the inside of the car, it becomes abundantly clear. This is a proper race car. You see, look at the carpets. There's nothing there. It's all been taken away. The door pads at the back, gone. The seat at the back, gone. Everything's been replaced by bare metal. Also, the biggest thing that you'll find is this FIA spec roll cage over here. Even the FIA spec proper racing seat that you've got here. It's even got a 6-point harness which basically keeps the driver in place so that when he's actually pushing his car through the limits, he stays glued in place and doesn't really move around. Now, the dash itself, if you see here, everything's gone. There's no climate control, there's no air conditioning, there's nothing. Just a quick ignition switch, something to set off the fire extinguisher in case there's a fire on board. The steering wheel itself, well, it's a 3-spoke racing wheel that you've got at your hands over here. And behind the wheel is an interesting LCD display. Now, this basically obstructs the view of the driver from the other instrument console over here, but you don't really need it because everything that the driver wants to know while he's driving is displayed over here. Now this little box not only records and displays the data of all the vital statistics of the car, for example what the speed is, what the RPM meter is saying, what the temperature is, and even the shift lights. It's got these neat little LED lights that roll across the top over here and tell the driver exactly when to change the gear, and there's also a display to tell the driver which gear he is in. Now all this information is stored over here. This can then be taken out from this particular system, downloaded onto a computer where the driver and his race engineer can basically study all that data and find out exactly how the driver was driving, at which point did he brake early, which point did he brake late, where he accelerated a little too slowly. Now all these things are downloaded onto the computer and then the race engineer helps the driver understand how exactly he was driving. Now all this is very impressive and honestly I'm blown away and a little bit shaking even as to how this car is actually going to behave. Now before you can actually get inside the racing car, you've got to be dressed right for the occasion. After a couple of reconnaissance laps, you just begin to realize how much grip there is in this car. I mean, there is a lot of mechanical grip And of course, there is a lot of grip that is there because of these tires. Now these racing slick tires, they're actually really good. Another thing that excites the senses is the sound from the free flow exhaust system at the back of this car. It just urges you to push the engine higher up the rev range because the louder it gets, the better it sounds. We know that the engine is tuned to produce 180 brake horsepower, but it's the urgency with which the power is delivered, and that just puts a big smile on your face. Especially when you're heading down the long straight at the Kari Speedway, the numbers keep climbing, 180, 190, almost 200 kilometers per hour before the 50-meter board comes into view. Hard on the brakes, and the fantastic brakes just slow the car down from 200 to 60 kilometers per hour in just a short distance. The steering response itself is very sharp. It gets a power steering alright, but the feedback that's essential for any racing driver, it's just fabulous. Cars that they give the drivers to drive are actually proper race cars. It's not just a souped-up Polo as anyone would think. It's actually a proper race car. The techniques that they adopt to train the drivers as to how to become better drivers, as to how to compete in the higher formula, I think they're spot on. They've got the right tools, they've got the right attitude, and of course, they've got the right cars.